The Pittsburgh Steelers record streak will continue in 2023. With a rising offense, a great defense, and a high amount of youth, the Steelers are on track to finish above 500 yet again. I'm Chase Keller, and tune into this dive of the Pittsburgh Steelers, why I believe they will finish 9-8, and how they came up in 15th in my 2023 NFL Power Rankings. The consistent Pittsburgh offense will rely on the bloom of several young talents in 2023. Previously, I thought the record streak could have been over, and while it still can be, the team focused on team needs for offense and upgraded it near the top half of the rankings. With that being said, let's talk about this offense. The quarterback room for Pittsburgh is up and coming, of course. I think that Kenny Pickett is starting to become underrated, as his rookie season in 2022 showed more promise than what he's getting credit for. Sure, his 2022 season got off to a cold start as he threw 2 touchdowns to 8 interceptions in his first 6 games, but he ended the season on a hot note, throwing 5 touchdowns compared to 1 interception after that. There are a couple of observations that I noted throughout his rookie season. First, the team was hesitant to trust and rely on Pickett as the lead quarterback, and on many occasions, the team went a lot of plays without a pass. Pickett was 21st in pass attempts in 2022, and he averaged just about 30 a game. He was relied on more than Trubisky was, though, when he started, as Trubisky averaged 25.5 attempts a game. Second, he showed great confidence going deep, attempting 20-yard passes on 12% of dropbacks, and he completed over 38% of these passes. Only 2 of his 47 deep attempts were turnover worthy, which is a lower percentage than his medium attempts. And finally, he showed great poise as a rookie, completing just under 50% of his passes while under pressure. He also held on to a fair amount of balls last season with 4 fumbles. And if Pickett goes down, the Steelers do have a nice backup in Mitchell Trubisky. He's nothing special, and he's not a starting talent, but he can make a couple of big plays here and there. Moving on to the running back room, I was expecting it to be a bit better going into the season, but for now, it sits so close to a bad rating. The RB1 isn't bad at all, but I was expecting Najee Harris to explode in 2022. Not only did he miss that big leap, but he was just overall disappointing. He took a step back in yards per carry, and he fumbled 3 times last season compared to 1 fumble his rookie year. He also had less breakaway runs, having 20 runs of 10+ yards. Compare that to his freshman year, where he ran 28 times for over 10 yards. That goes without mentioning that he lost a lot of volume in the air, which is to be expected with a drastic quarterback switch. I'm not expecting him to receive more in 2023, but as long as he gets the rushing ability back, he will be okay. Harris does have to watch his back for Jaylen Warren, who showed more promise on the ground than Harris did last year. Despite going undrafted in the 2022 NFL Draft, Warren still touched the ball 105 times, had 593 yards, and 1 touchdown. I understand that there is a concern for touchdown production when it comes to Warren, but he still showed better open field ability last season compared to Najee. He even forced a higher percent of tackles last season, forcing 1 tackle every 4 runs compared to Najee's 1 every 5. The wide receiver core is a very solid one for Pickett going into his second season. They remind me a lot of the Panthers core, being that there are no wide receiver 1 talents here, but a bunch of wide receiver 2 talents. That may be a controversial statement, but hear me out for a second. Sure, I don't think Deontay Johnson is a wide receiver 1, but he is a nice short pass target who is the main guy in the screen game. Johnson did have his lowest amount of volume and yardage last year since his 2019 rookie season. Johnson has dropped at least 6.7% of his targets in the last 3 seasons, including 13.2% of drops in 2020. He also had 0 touchdowns last season, but that's hard to control when your quarterback play is not great. Johnson is still a fine short route guy, and he should be a reliable option for Kenny Pickett. Allen Robinson is a new wideout to this room, but his fall off needs to be discussed more. He had 1,300 yards in 2020, but since then, he's only had 749 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a handful of injury concerns. But as I mentioned, the Steelers did a great job at pulling in team needs. While a wide receiver 2 isn't needed much, they did need a developer to my first breakout grade in George Pickens. The 2022 second round pick was very promising last season, and he made a lot of plays with just his catch radius last year. He also caught 4 of the team's 12 passing touchdowns, which for a rookie is very impressive. With his ability to make plays by himself, he deserves this breakout grade. And the backup guys aren't bad at all, with 70 overall Miles Boykin and 61 overall Calvin Austin making up the rest of this rating. The tight end room has the best overall behind the quarterbacks, and it's primarily because breakout grade number 2 is here. They also filled up the room with an A+ draft selection, which I'll discuss in a moment. But first, let's discuss my second breakout player in Pat Freiermuth. He made leaps in 2022 despite a downgrade in quarterback play, and while 2 touchdowns is concerning, 732 yards on 63 catches is not. He made that massive leap in yards per reception as well as seeing more volume. He also was one of the most efficient deep game tight ends last season, seeing 4 receptions for 96 yards in plays of 20 plus more air yards. And that A+ draft selection in Darnell Washington will complement Freiermuth in the receiving game and act as a 6th offensive lineman in the blocking game. While at Georgia, Washington was dominant as both an upfield blocker and an open field receiver. My only issue with him right now is that he's not fluent enough to translate that. I don't know if his fluidity is going to transfer good to the next level. It's an A+ selection because I saw Washington as a late first round talent, and he fell all the way to the late 3rd. With a need in all-around blocking, Washington is a perfect selection for Pittsburgh. And finally, the offensive linemen themselves are under average, but the blocking is not particularly after the draft selection of Washington. But let's talk about the O-line players here though. Now, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who believes this, but I think the best offensive lineman from the 2023 NFL Draft is Broderick Jones. He may not be the most complete tackle prospect, but he has the upside to be a Hall of Fame blocker. Jones has a great combination of both athleticism and technique, which is great for the blindside position. He's also great at tempo blocking, and no matter the pace of this offense, he will do well. When discussing negatives about him, he often gets too aggressive against edge defenders and gets athletically beaten for that reason. Beside Jones on the line, it's nothing special, nor is it awful. Isaac Seumalo is a high upside pickup with fantastic pass blocking. He did not disappoint in a 1,350 snap season in 2022, and I'm expecting it to continue with Pittsburgh. Mason Cole used to be one of the worst centers in the league, but he turned his career around last season with Pittsburgh. He's always been a better run blocker than a pass blocker, but he showed out in both aspects last season. If Mason Cole continues to improve, a not so bright Pittsburgh offensive line could improve to a good one. James Daniels is another guy who was new to Pittsburgh last year, and I've always liked Daniels and how good he is. He's a quality guard with some of the NFL's best combo blocking, and he's stayed consistent with no down years up to this point. And finally, the worst part of this line is Chukwuma Okorafor, who has never elevated himself to a starting worthy tackle through 3 of 1,000 plus snap seasons. He could elevate himself at any point, but for now, he sits as an average right tackle. The offensive coaching side of things is the only thing that's holding this coaching staff back from being a perfect 10 out of 10. Just like a lot of fans, I'm surprised that Matt Canada is still with Pittsburgh. Canada is a spread offensive coordinator who split the load between passing and rushing last season. With the upcoming Kenny Pickett, we should see more go his way, but it's hard to say that with Canada running the offense. The massive negative to Canada's scheme is that it's just boring, stale, and straight out of Madden. It's extremely predictable, and 2 straight years of under 20th in both yards and points further exemplifies that. So at this point, it's hard to say that a Matt Canada run offense will be successful. To summarize, the Steelers are on the rise with some young talents and a great offseason. Time will tell if this offseason can bloom under Matt Canada. So now, let's discuss the defense. The defense is clearly the better part of this roster, and historically speaking, it's been that way for the last few years. With a lot of veteran talent and a continued great offseason in this department, the defense seems stronger than last season. So let's dive into this pristine defense. The edge group is hard to find anywhere else. Led by the NFL's best, along with one of the league's most underrated, I love this edge group. TJ Watt is someone who everyone knows how dominant he is. If you remember how dominant JJ Watt was, TJ Watt has the opportunity to be even more dominant, but in different ways. Watt's athleticism off the edge is phenomenal, and the way he just easily swims around defenders is unlike no other. There's literally no flaws in his game. He's just elite. Yet, we know how dominant TJ Watt is, but I think more people need to know how dominant Alex Highsmith is. Last season, he exploded onto the scene, seeing a career-high 55 pressures and 940 snaps, which comes out to 29th across the league. Highsmith was more dominant in the front half of the year, as in the back half of the year, he started becoming more predictable. If Highsmith wants to continue with his dominance, he's going to need to look into expanding his arsenal for this upcoming season. And I believe that will happen, so he receives breakout grade number 3 on this roster. The other two guys contributing to this elite rating are both 2023 offseason pickups. Golden is a 32-year-old veteran who still has flashes of dominance, and Roche is going into his 3rd season as he looks to get back on track after spending last season on the practice squad. Chase Keller editing here. To specify, that's the New York practice squad, not Pittsburgh. The interior defensive linemen are a mix of veterans and young guys, and the first two guys are complete opposites in terms of experience. The guy everyone knows is Cameron Hayward, who is already the second of 3 88+ overall guys on this defense. In my opinion, if you hit 88 or more, you are a superstar. Hayward is 34 years old, and he's just as dominant as ever. He's an all-around beast, producing top-tier pass rush statistics and making great plays on rushers up the inside. Hayward is a great mentor for yet another A-grade draft selection. Keanu Benton is a little raw, but I loved him as a mid-second round talent in this draft. Efficiency, production, and experience have never been a problem for Benton, and with Hayward as a mentor, he can develop into a dual-threat lineman. Currently, Benton's best trait is his run defense, as he's a very powerful run defender with great bull rush tendencies. Benton will likely be stuck as a two-gapping nose tackle, as he's not versatile enough to play on the outside of the D-line. Those are the guys who are all but confirmed to start all season. The rest of the group is Larry Ogunjobi, Montravius Adams, Armon Watts, and DeMarvin Leal, who will all fight for the 3rd spot. According to our lads, Ogunjobi will be that 3rd starter. The downside of this defense is the terrible linebacker core. I loved how many needs Pittsburgh filled this offseason, but they failed to efficiently address the linebacker room. The best they could do was sign Cole Holcomb from Washington, and that move was not enough. Holcomb is a good rotational piece in my eyes, and given his 2022 injury, the sample size for him as a full-time starter isn't enough. He's a good tackling linebacker, but none of his traits stick out to me as a starting caliber linebacker. As I said though, he is a good rotational piece, and you could use that on a team. Pittsburgh also signed Nick Kwiatkowski, who I've always found as fairly underrated. He may not make the roster, but as of now, he contributes to this rating as a linebacker too. I don't know what happened to him as to why he's not playing anymore, as just 2 years ago, he was a very efficient coverage linebacker. So I'm just going to assume that he won't play next year and his rating will continue to fall. Behind him, Tanner Muse and Elandon Roberts aren't enough off the bench. They're the projected linebacker number 2 and linebacker number 3, and I don't like it. After being drafted in the 3rd round in 2020, Muse has only 2 career games with 20 or more snaps. While Roberts has a lot more than that, he's never shown off as an efficient linebacker. The cornerbacks bring back the positivity though. They are another above average positional group, and yet again, it's because of a signing they made this offseason. That addition is Patrick Peterson, a 33-year-old veteran with a lot left in the tank. In 2022, he had one of the most productive seasons he's ever had with 5 interceptions and 9 pass breakups. He actually had the 3rd lowest passer rating allowed of his career in 2022, and he's been dominating for 12 seasons now. He's very much worth a cornerback 1 spot still, and I'm excited to see what he does in Pittsburgh. The team also drafted Joey Porter Jr., another fantastic draft selection. Fun fact, In my opinion, the Steelers are the only NFL team that had all A-grade selections in the 2023 NFL Draft. Back to Porter though, he may have some instincts issues as well as being a little grabby, but he's still a great prospect. From ball skills to play strength, he is a very physical corner who will lock down every receiver that challenges him. And even behind him, Levi Wallace is a very solid cornerback 3 who has allowed over a 60% completion percentage only once in his 5-year career. That includes an 1,100 snap season and no seasons below 700 over the last 4 years. And finally, the safety room has the 3rd superstar player on this defense, along with decent depth, to wrap up yet another above-average positional group. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been a stud since college, and he has shown no signs of slowing down. He's consistently a top-tier coverage safety, and recently, he's been showing elite run support as well. The reason he hasn't cracked a 90+ overall yet is because he needs to produce more outside of ball hawking. I need to see at least an 8 pass breakup season to get him to above a 90. And Fitzpatrick is going to help out the rest of this group. Damontae Kazee and Keanu Neal will compete for that second safety spot, and I have to agree with our lads that Kazee takes that second spot. Kazee was extremely efficient in a stacked safety room in Philly last season, and he didn't miss a single one of his 14 tackles. With Neal though, he hasn't been nearly as efficient, but he's consistently played more than Kazee has. As for the coaching, when you have quite possibly the best defensive-minded head coach in the entire league, your defense is bound to be great. Mike Tomlin is a base 3-4 coach, but he loves to create pressures with the front 5 guys. That's why guys like Cameron Hayward and Alex Highsmith are bringing in pressures despite their own respective setbacks. With him being a fantastic head coach going into his 16th season, and a worthy defensive coordinator in Terrell Austin under his coaching tree, it's going to be a great year for Pittsburgh defensive coaching. To summarize, this defense has some young talent who will get to develop behind some fantastic star power. If the linebacker core was just slightly better, this defense could easily be top 5. Finally, let's discuss the rating splits. So before I end the video, I'm going to discuss the rating splits of the offense, defense, special teams, coaching, and overall team. If you are interested in how the rating system works, it is in the description below. Let's get started with the offense, who had a 75.21, which is 18th in the NFL, 11th in the AFC, and 4th in the AFC North. The defense had a 75.41, which is 7th in the NFL, 4th in the AFC, and 1st in the AFC North. The special teams had a 70.14, which is 26th in the NFL, 12th in the AFC, and 3rd in the AFC North. And coaching came out to a 78 out of 80, which is tied for 11th in the NFL, tied for 6th in the AFC, and 3rd in the AFC North. As an overall team, they received a 75.8, which is 3rd in the AFC North, 9th in the AFC, and 15th in the NFL. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I have 14 more teams to power rank, so you're missing out. Once again, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.